These are the 25 most humiliating penalty kicks in football history. And first up, a penalty that was voted as one of the best goals of the 2024 La Liga season.
Momento de inflexión en el partido y yo creo que en la temporada. Ocampos, dominado el tío. ¡Gol!
Damn, bro really scored and celebrated a penalty without even looking. He might be Lisan Al-Gaib.
Lisan Al-Gaib!
But even such divine confidence is nothing compared to the goalkeeper who humiliated himself at number 24.
Wat een wedstrijd.
In a match between PSV and Heracles, Jis Hornkamp straight up made the keeper shit himself before coolly slotting the ball in the opposite direction.
Heel rustig. Hij fopt de doelman van PSV.
He even got his rivals complaining about how humiliating that penalty was. You genuinely cannot make this sport up. But what Amad Diallo did at number 23 shouldn't have been shown on live TV. With the entire world watching, Manchester United's Amad Diallo chose the perfect opportunity to show everyone just how cold he really is.
Like Bruno.
Unique run-up from Ahmad, that's for certain. Oh, he gets it. He anchors it. I mean, that's the cheekiest of all the cheeky passes.
Yeah, you could tell he just wanted to humiliate that goalkeeper. But at number 22, the football gods personally intervened to teach someone a lesson in humility. This player hits the crossbar, and before the ball has even decided what it wants to do next, the goalkeeper is already sprinting toward him to laugh in their face. Unfortunately, karma struck back instantly as the ball bounced back into an empty net. Yeah, the football gods do have a great sense of humor, but even divine comedy couldn't prepare you for the heartbreak that comes next. After 50 years of waiting for an AFCON title, the hopes of Moroccans came down to one final spot kick. Brahim Diaz versus Mendy. But instead of blasting the ball into a corner, Diaz broke Moroccan hearts by doing the unthinkable.
The card is out. Well, he didn't trees, you would imagine, the first time. Certainly not wishing him good luck, that's for sure. It's Diaz, and he thinks it straight at Mendy. Penalty. Absolutely woeful.
Damn, getting humiliated while trying to aura farm is one of the worst things that can happen to anyone. But none of that chaos and heartbreak could crack our top 20, because from here on, these penalties stop being funny and start becoming genuinely legendary. I'm talking about a goalkeeper dancing, Onana embarrassing himself, and one of the worst misses you'll ever see. Before we get to those, however, we have to see Neymar ruining a goalkeeper's career. I know penalties are serious business, but it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of fun sometimes. When Neymar was about to take this penalty, he asked the keeper to choose which corner he wanted it played.
Ah, là, vous avez vu le geste de désolation de Lucas Pira qui vient.
Pointing to his right, the keeper chose to dive in the opposite direction. The keeper literally chose his own fate and still got it wrong. And at number 19, a goalkeeper tried the exact same thing and somehow ended up in an even worse situation. You would think goalkeepers would have a group chat where they warn each other about the consequences of starting mind games they aren't equipped to finish. This one clearly wasn't in that group chat. Damn, I would have thrown hands if a player did me dirty like this. You can't just stand there and accept such humiliation like a parking ticket. At number 18, however, Memphis Depay tried to be cool in the Brazilian derby, only to be humbled unexpectedly. Corinthians versus Palmeiras, one of the most intense derbies in South American football, and Memphis Depay steps up to the spot, radiating the energy of a man who has scored 1,000 of these and will score 1,000 more. He begins his run-up with complete confidence and then slips. Not a little stumble you can recover from with dignity. A full slip that sends the ball absolutely nowhere near the goal while the keeper watches from a safe distance. Yeah, you have to feel bad for him at this point. But at number 17, a goalkeeper used his eyes as a weapon. When Mason Holgate was about to take his penalty, the goalkeeper gave him a death stare. It was so intense that you could see Holgate's confidence physically leaving his body. His run-up gets slower, his shoulders drop, and then he kicks the ball straight at the goalkeeper. I genuinely cannot tell you whether that goalkeeper practiced some form of dark energy or just had really good eyes. But whatever it was, it needs to be studied by scientists immediately. But at number 16, a goalkeeper's celebration came back to destroy him in the most satisfying way imaginable. Yassine Bono dives the right way and saves Haaland's penalty. But Bono didn't just celebrate, he sprinted after Haaland, screaming as if he just won a trophy. And then VAR said encroachment. Retake. The stadium went quiet. Bono had to walk back to his line in complete silence, carrying the full weight of what his mouth had just gotten him into. Haaland placed the ball on the spot, looked at him, and played it to the exact same side with the same power and the same result. Then walked directly to Bono and gave him every single thing back with interest. But at number 15, Andre Onana tried to be entertaining during a penalty shootout, and Fabio Vieira had absolutely no patience for the performance. The preseason friendly between Arsenal and Manchester United went to a mandatory penalty shootout, despite Arsenal winning 2-1 on the night. Andre Onana, who was in the mood for some fun, decided to mess with Arsenal's Fabio Vieira. As the Arsenal player prepared to take his spot kick, Onana moved to his right while pointing to his left. Vieira, who was in no mood for games, sent Onana to the dry cleaners with his spot kick. But just when you thought you'd seen it all, the most unhinged goalkeeper in the world showed up, and somehow it worked. Australia versus Peru, a World Cup spot on the line. Every kick worth a lifetime of either glory or regret. And substitute goalkeeper Andrew Redmayne decided that this was the perfect moment to completely abandon his sanity.
It's all on this for Peru. Alex Valera. Makes the save. It's a save that means the...
Before the penalty, he was doing full interpretive dance routines on his line. Arms going everywhere, hips swinging, legs kicking in directions that have no business existing in a high-stakes football match. The man looked like he was auditioning for Dancing with the Stars at the most important moment of Australian football history. And when the decisive penalty came, the Peruvian player was so thoroughly confused by whatever Redmayne was doing that he missed completely. You can laugh. You should laugh. but it worked, and that is the most terrifying sentence in this entire video. But at number 13, Paul Pogba turned his penalty run-up into a masterclass in psychological torture. Under 20 World Cup, France versus Uruguay, and Paul Pogba steps up to take his penalty, moving at a pace that can only be described as a man who has nowhere to be and nothing to prove.
Nonchalant run-up, which he looks like he's doing again here. Diamores waits. Pogba strikes it into the bottom corner.
This felt like a leisurely stroll through a Sunday market. No urgency, no tension. The goalkeeper had been crouched and ready and primed for about 45 seconds by the time Pogba arrived at the ball. By the time he played the ball, the goalkeeper had already given up. But at number 12, Sergio Ramos tried something audacious, and what followed was genuinely disgraceful to witness. In the UEFA Nations League match between Switzerland and Spain, the Spaniards desperately needed a goal, and that opportunity came when they were given a penalty. Sergio Ramos, who had scored his last 25 penalties in a row, stepped up to take it and missed.
The man of the moment, the milestone maker for Spain, is denied by...
Somehow, Spain got a second penalty. You would think one miss from 25 would inspire some humility. But Ramos decides this moment calls for a panenka.
His Spain debut, the European record holder this time, and he's fluffed his second spot kick.
Unfortunately, Sommer had already studied him, so he pretends to dive, stops, and watches Ramos's chip drift gently into his gloves at roughly the speed of a balloon on a calm day. But the next goalkeeper literally asked to be humiliated, and the penalty taker somehow chose not to oblige. Porto versus Maritimo, and before Telles takes the penalty, the opposition goalkeeper says out loud, "Come on, you're a big player, chip me." He is sincerely requesting to be disrespected. He is extending a formal written invitation to be embarrassed in front of thousands of people.
Vai ter nos pés a possibilidade de marcar. Autoriza o árbitro Rui Costa. Bate Alex Telles, defende. Amir, grande defesa do iraniano. Foi bem marcado.
But Telles missed the opportunity to do the most insane thing ever. Or maybe he didn't believe he was a big player. But now that we've made it to our top 10, it's time to take things to a whole new level. I'm talking about the greatest panenka in history. Zlatan embarrassing a goalkeeper, and the legendary beef between Main and Salah. Before we get to those, however, Onana is back with another gimmick at number 10.
Of something really special.
He writes his own rules.
Andre Onana had clearly decided that his shuffling goalkeeper gimmick was his gift to the sport, and he was going to keep giving it regardless of who was standing on the penalty spot. So when Erling Haaland stepped up, Onana launched into the full routine.
Oh my God. Hell no.
Haaland tilted his head slightly and then sent the ball the opposite way, without acknowledging that any of what Onana was doing had registered in his brain at all.
Onana saying, you know, play at that side. That's the way you're going to have to go because I'm standing here.
Erling Haaland against Onana. No problem.
The look on Haaland's face afterwards wasn't angry or amused or satisfied. It was just genuinely confused. Like he was still trying to work out what he just witnessed and whether it required any further thought.
I did it, so it's unbelievable.
At number 9, however, a player completely broke a goalkeeper's entire operating system. As this player made his run up to take the penalty, everyone expected him to blast the ball into one of the corners. Instead, he completely deceived the goalkeeper by kicking it with his other leg. But while this player messed with this goalkeeper's confidence, the next goalkeeper took comedy to a whole new level. Joselu is about to take a penalty, and Ter Stegen decides to perform what can only be described as a full stretching and mobility routine on his goal line. Joselu watched all of this with patience and sent the ball straight down the middle. genuinely hope his flexibility improved because his dignity certainly didn't survive the afternoon. At number 7, however, Van Dijk was handed a trap, recognized it immediately, and used it to destroy the man who set it. Kepa thought he had hacked a cheat code in saving penalties. He moved to the right-hand side of the goalpost in a bid to trick Van Dijk into playing the ball to his left. But Van Dijk showed him he was smarter by playing the ball right where he was standing.
Centre-half, Virgil van Dijk to take the next. And Van Dijk left nothing to chance.
Well, for a game that was 0-0 after 2 hours of football, the penalty...
Speaking of goalkeepers standing, Andrea Pirlo introduced Joe Hart to the concept that confidence without wisdom is just noise. Euro 2012, England versus Italy, and Joe Hart was in the form of his life, and he absolutely knew it. As Andrea Pirlo stood over the ball, Hart was practically vibrating with energy, tongue out, arms waving, bouncing across his line, making as much noise and movement as one human being is physically capable of generating. Pirlo watched all of this, let Hart finish his entire performance, and then chipped the ball into the dead center of the goal in the most ice-cold panenka you will ever see in your life.
He misses, this country will be in trouble. Jiggling up and down on the line. This is Pirlo. Oh, how cheeky is that? The float.
Do you want salt with that chip, Joe? And now that we've reached the top 5, the penalties aren't just humiliating anymore. These are moments that changed football history, rewrote rule books, and settled rivalries. Starting with the penalty style so devastatingly effective that FIFA had to sit in a room and formally make it illegal.
Hey yo, what the I'm gonna lose my shit!
When Neymar was coming through at Santos, he was already operating on a different frequency to every other footballer on the planet. And during that period, he developed a penalty technique that was frankly unfair to everyone involved. He would approach the ball normally and then pause mid-strike in a way that forced the goalkeeper to commit before the ball moved. And once the keeper committed, it was already over. 5 consecutive penalties, 5 goals, 5 different goalkeepers. Same result every single time. The videos went viral and eventually reached the people at FIFA, who watched them, convened a meeting, reviewed the technique, and put it to a vote to ban it for life. At number 4, however, a goalkeeper chose to mess with Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Wrong move. Inter Milan versus AC Milan derby, and Julio Cesar is absolutely fired up because Ibrahimovic is stepping up to take a penalty. So Cesar does something remarkably bold and walks straight up to Zlatan and tells him to his face, "I know where you're going. You're playing it down the middle," doing the full psychological warfare routine, trying to get into the big man's head.
Swinging for Inter Milan.
It's a massive moment in a war of words, mind games from Julio Cesar.
Well, these guys hate each other. Inter and AC.
Zlatan listens to all of this, doesn't react, doesn't blink, doesn't smile, just stares forward, places the ball, steps back, runs up, and plays it straight down the middle. Then turns to Cesar and says, "Speak now, you clown."
This in the Milan derby, Ibrahimovic, no doubt about it. 27 goals in Serie A and none.
But either way, it's just positive. There's that little cachicazo, the slap that Zlatan loves to give everyone.
But where Cesar failed with his antics, Emi Martinez pulled off a psychological masterclass. Copa America semifinal, Argentina versus Colombia. It goes to penalties, and Emiliano Martinez decides this shootout is his personal stage, and Yerry Mina is his opening act. The moment Mina picks up the ball, Martinez is already in his face, talking trash until Mina misses. I genuinely cannot decide who talks more, Martinez during a penalty shootout or my girlfriend when I've done something wrong and she's walking me through exactly why. The energy is identical. But at number 2, Salah chose the biggest stage to snitch on his teammate. The 2021 AFCON final between Egypt and Senegal was expected to be insane. Mane versus Salah, two African giants going head-to-head. 5 minutes into the match, Egypt conceded a penalty. As Sadio Mane prepared to take his spot kick, his Liverpool teammate Mo Salah walked up to his goalkeeper and told him where Mane would play it. Upset by this move, Mane also tried to mess with the keeper by pointing in the same direction. But the Egyptian goalkeeper was already locked in.
A much bigger penalty now, and it is Senegal who missed the opportunity, and a wonderful save from Abu Gaba.
However, Mane wasn't about to let his teammate get one over him. So when the match went to a penalty shootout, he stepped up and blasted in the last spot kick that won Senegal the trophy.
Now, Mo Salah can't bear to watch. Mane! Senegal are African champions!
But now, it's time for the most humiliating penalty kick in history. The 2021-22 season, and Karim Benzema is on another planet. He's destroying every team in Europe. He's hunting down the Ballon d'Or. He is arguably the best player in the world, and Real Madrid are the most feared club on the continent. Then they travel to Osasuna, not Barcelona, not Bayern Munich, Osasuna. And their goalkeeper decides today is the day he becomes a legend. 51st minute, Benzema steps up. The keeper points left, then dives right to save it.
Up steps Benzema, and he saved it! He saves it again. So, Osasuna stays.
Fine, these things happen even to the greatest players. You regroup, you move on, you let your teammates handle the next one. Except 7 minutes later, Real Madrid get another penalty, and Benzema steps up again. The same goalkeeper reads him again, saves it again. In the same match, 7 minutes apart.
He is right. Up steps Benzema, saved it! And he saves it again. So, Osasuna stay just one goal behind Real Madrid.
As a result, Benzema became the first player to miss 2 penalties in a single La Liga match since 2006. And it wasn't against a Champions League giant or a derby rival. It was one goalkeeper on one ordinary afternoon who simply decided that the best player in the world was not scoring past him today. And that is why it is the most humiliating penalty moment in football history. But as humiliating as these penalty moments were, they are absolutely nothing compared to what some of these players are putting on their plates. Click on the next video to find out what football players really eat, because some of these meals are honestly more shocking than anything you just watched.